Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Well, I not surprisingly, rise to support this bill. And I want to maybe, for the benefit of the members opposite who don't, probably tell them why. Tell this place why. Why do I support this bill? Why do we support this bill? Because at the heart of these policies is something that they have lacked in spades, and that is leadership. It's a type of leadership. And I notice they're laughing on the other side there, the member for Casey. You shouldn't laugh, because what has been sorely lacking, or what was sorely lacking during the years of coalition drift, was leadership. But what kind of leadership are we talking about? What kind of leadership when it comes to this bill and these policies? It's showing leadership in two key areas, Deputy Speaker. The first is our transition to net zero, a massive, huge national undertaking that is important for Australia's future, but also across the globe. And the second is our leadership in restarting, revitalising and reshaping our national industrial and our industries and our manufacturing, and with that our economic resilience, because of the circumstances that we face in the 21st century. And that requires leadership. These are big undertakings. And in doing both, Deputy Speaker, we on this side of the aisle are backing in Australian manufacturing. We're backing in Australian industry, and we're backing Australian workers. Because unlike those who across the aisle, when they were in power, they tried to kill Australian manufacturing. They almost very much did it. And when they were in power, they sought to end what had been a long and storied history of Australian workers in Australian manufacturing making things in this country. Now, this bill, Deputy Speaker, seeks to do has three key components. Firstly, we want to take a principled approach to drawing private investment into priority industries to again revitalise and reshape manufacturing in this country and our Australian industries. And we're doing this by implementing the National Interest Framework, or the NIF, and under the NIF the government will be able to identify where Australia has a comparative advantage in the net zero transition, and also where Australia needs to be resilient and self-sufficient. And that goes to that point around our national interests and our national security as well. Secondly, we're undertaking a robust sector assessment to improve our understanding of how government can best leverage private investment in areas of the economy aligned with the framework. This will help inform rigorous government decision-making. And thirdly, we've defined a set of community benefits, helping us measure where the benefits of the Future Made in Australia are flowing into. This ensures the Future Made in Australia plan is actually benefiting local communities, people on the ground, workers and businesses through the flow of that private investment. The second bill amends two previous acts to practically implement this government's plan for explicit public investment at scale to attract private finance in sectors that have a comparative advantage in a net zero global economy, or where the domestic capability could deliver economic resilience and supply chain security. Economic resilience and supply chain security, two fundamentally important objectives of this government, given the circumstances we face globally. So first, the second part of the bill, the second bill amends the Export Finance and Insurance Corporation Act to enable Export Finance Australia, the EFA, to make domestically focused investments under the National Interest Account in alignment with the National Interest Framework. And second, it amends the Australian Renewable Energy Agency Act of 2011 to expand the role and functions of the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, ARENA, so it can support industries under the Future Made in Australia Innovation Fund and other programs. Deputy Speaker, through this amendment, we're continuing to ensure that ARENA has $6 billion in funding so that the agency can continue to provide industry and investors certainty to deliver sizable, long-lasting projects. Third, this bill sets up arrangements for the Future Made in Australia Innovation Fund to accelerate innovative technology deployment in priority sectors and makes necessary adjustments to the governance arrangements of the ARENA. Now, Deputy Speaker, many pretty much everyone all the members on the other side of this chamber have questioned the need for government intervention in renewables and also in the supply chain security. And now they may be doing that from an ideological perspective. They may be doing it because they're playing politics with these issues. But they'd have you believe, Deputy Speaker, that it's just okay to leave it all up to the private sector, to the market, to let the capital flow wherever it may choose to go in that sort of purist free market ideological view. Now, I'll say very clearly, we disagree. We fundamentally disagree, and it's important to understand why. The truth is, capital doesn't just flow wherever it desires due to a free market. There is also capital flows to where there is innovation as well, when you incentivise that innovation. And there are all sorts of interventions in the free market, many made by the government, made by the previous government, despite their ideological protestations. And the point, though, is where you make those interventions and how you make those interventions and how you try and incentivise innovation so that capital can flow there. Now, other countries understand this because innovation brings with it the prospect of higher returns, and other countries are making themselves more and more attractive investment destinations. In a competitive world, or competing for capital, that is what we are faced with today. And 2 whole years ago, almost to this day, another great country, the United States, the US Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, a $250 billion package focused solely on accelerating their transition to a net zero economy. Now that is, in the land of the free, a massive energy transition that is undertaken. There's no free market there at all. You're seeing a massive investment and incentivisation by the US government and Congress to incentivise that innovation. And of course, we need to do the same so that we can benefit as well, and our workers and our industries can do what they do really well. It's true, Deputy Speaker, this country is blessed with raw materials. That's true. We're blessed with ample sun, wind and coastline. And we have a choice whether we continue to just rely on our historical success through digging up and mining, or we also innovate. We also move forward. We also incentivise that innovation. And that's important to note. Now, I turn, Deputy Speaker, to the second part of this, which is I noted the security of supply chains, global energy and supply chains. And they've been under enormous pressure in recent years, as we know, as crisis after crisis overseas with conflict has had an impact on these supply chains and on global energy prices. Now, we know, as well as causing a grave humanitarian crisis, Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine has had far-reaching impacts on the global energy system, disrupting supply and demand patterns and fracturing long-standing trading relationships. Now, we are committed to a target of 82% national renewable electricity generation by 2030, and the global demand for batteries is set to quadruple by 2030 as the world transitions to net zero, even as we face the impacts of conflicts like the invasion of Ukraine and its impact on those supply chains. There is a move forward towards that transition because that is what is needed. Now, I'd ask those opposite, is the market for batteries, are people just going to keep buying batteries from elsewhere? Are we Australians just going to keep buying batteries that are made elsewhere? Or are we going to show leadership and nurture a highly innovative industry right here at home, right here in Australia, to capture part of that burgeoning market? That's a fundamental question. For us, the answer is yes. It's firmly yes, because of the opportunity. And our national battery strategy will set us up to meet this demand ourselves and build a world-leading battery manufacturing industry here in Australia. Manufacturing batteries onshore will secure Australia's place in global battery supply chains. And why shouldn't we? Despite the ideological views of those opposite or the political game playing of the Greens political party, why shouldn't we be able to move into that manufacturing space when we have the people, They have the skills. We can incentivise the industry. We have the raw materials, like lithium and and copper and other raw materials. Why shouldn't we be involved in that part of the supply chain as well? Well, our answer is we should, because it makes a big difference to the future of Australian workers and Australian manufacturing and our self-sufficiency and our self-reliance in a very uncertain world. And importantly, it will make us more resilient to what will inevitably be more supply shocks that will occur. We don't know. We can't crystal ball this, but where it will happen and what kind of shocks will occur, but it's very highly probable there will be more supply chain shocks. We need that resilience. We need that foundation rebuilt. We need that manufacturing kick-started again and revitalised. And whether the shocks come from, hopefully not, and I would say whether they come from pandemics or war or simply belligerence amongst various countries as trade starts to become more and more difficult, it is important that we have the resilience within our own self-sufficiency, our economic resilience, so that we can produce the things that we need going forward and be part of that global market. And also, the benefit and the process of this will be a massive creation of good, solid, stable Australian jobs for generations of Australians. Now, the opposition in 10 years, Deputy Speaker, showed no leadership in realising that Australian industries require incentives and business-friendly conditions, especially for nascent industries. They had no vision. They had no foresight. They couldn't see beyond the tip of their own nose and the politics that they played. The short-termism was, well, it's laughable if it wasn't so tragic. The so-called party of low taxes and free markets wants us to be a net importer. They want us to buy from the world but never sell to it. The coalition turned their back on Australian workers, on Australian manufacturing, on the very industries that could have propelled us into a new era of economic prosperity. And they sat idly by, at one level, allowing our manufacturing base to wither, but they also pushed it, tried to kill it themselves, proactively putting policies in place to destroy manufacturing in this country. There was neglect, there was complacency, and there was outright undermining of manufacturing. And we know the stories around car manufacturing and how they tried to kill it. And they did end a big chunk of car manufacturing in this country. But not only the big factories and we were making Toyota Camrys when the Australian dollar was high, we were still selling those quality products to places in the Middle East. But they still tried to kill it. And they didn't just kill the car manufacturing, they killed all of the industries, the small and medium-sized businesses that were around that ecosystem, that provided different parts, that had small engineering companies, that employed Australians. They killed them off as well. And all that skill and all that knowledge and all that technical expertise, they just threw away. They denied. Now, some of these small, medium-sized companies tried to evolve. They've struggled to survive, to do other things, and we want to support that. But I tell you what, Deputy Speaker, the days of that neglect, that complacency and that outright viciousness towards manufacturing are over, because the Albanese government is committed to a vision of a future where Australia leads the world in clean manufacturing, where our industries are not just surviving but thriving, and where our workers are at the heart of our national economic success. And let's be clear, Deputy Speaker, the Future Made in Australia bills aren't just about policy, they're about those people. They're about those Australians who deserve the opportunity to work in those industries, to make things again in this country, to develop and to work to make sure that we are economically resilient, that we are self-sufficient, that we are self-reliant, that we are not exposed again to the risks that are likely over the horizon. That's why I support these bills, because it's about the men and women who get up every morning, put on their work boots, head out to those factories, those workshops and those plants across this country, and we will support them with this policy.
I thank the member for Wills.